second. There we go.
I think we've got to post it up, right? How's it going, everybody?
Good. Are we going to get an intro from Alex? Like, what's happening?
Yeah,
here?
I don't know. He just wants to stare at us longingly.
Oh, you want me to do an intro? Oh yeah, that's not
It's
happening.
your channel, man.
No. Let me give you a little bit of insight into the me. It is all a whim. It is all my tyranny. It
Magical.
I feel like talking, thus I talk.
Okay, rock
Sounds
and
good
roll,
to me,
dude.
man. Let's do it.
All right. Well, hey, Zammar. I actually have a question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, I want to ask about your process, of course, because I'm so curious. But when it came to starting to write this book, did you have a prompt that you gave yourself before going in? I can't remember if I've seen in you talking to somebody else about it, but before I picked up the book, I was like watching a bunch of stuff. I was like, man, this cover is sick. I want to pick it up. So I'm curious, was there a prompt that you had that kind of got you rolling, or what?
Yeah, I don't think that there wasn't like a single prompt. It's more, I don't know, man. It's like I just spent time reading. Like, I find this really hard to explain, right? Like, over several years of reading, I just had these characters kind of pop into my head, and specifically with certain scenes. And like, we can talk about specific scenes later, but like these key scenes for a couple of characters, they just kept popping in my head. And for me, it was like, over time, I was just building an entire story in my head around those scenes. And that all happened before I put anything on paper. And yeah, like I'm very much not that much of a planner, but it was never like I don't think there was ever a moment of like, okay, like I don't even know how you write a book according to a prompt. Like, I'm not sure if you could give me an example of that, but
like a what if, XYZ, like what if like one of your favorite fictional characters went down a different road or something like that, something along those lines. Yeah.
So you could have started it as a fanfic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like I was studying a lot of the Indian history at that time, and I've mentioned before about Ashoka the Great. It was like this old Indian king. So I think like specifically, I kind of had this scene in my, like that first scene in my head, which is from somewhere near the end of book one. That popped about when I was like reading up on Ashoka, and I was just like a completely different person, obviously, but I was imagining this random guy who's a king, and he's just really sad at a battlefield because he's like, oh, I messed up, and and the impact that has on it, and that was influenced from the Ashoka the Great thing. But then at the same time, I was reading Abercrombie, I was reading Sanderson, I was reading all these, and Hobb, and all these authors I love, and over time I was just kept throwing in extra characters and extra scenes, and it all kind of built out from there.
That Abercrombie inspiration, by the way, was so clear. As I was reading
in the best
book,
way,
I'm like, holy crap. The conveying of the thoughts and the manner of speech is conveyed through your prose. And I'm just going, yeah, that's like Abercrombie. I totally see the influence.
Yeah, I mean, he is my favorite author by far. Like, I used to love so many books, and then I read Abercrombie, and it's like everything, like nothing else ever compared again.
Yeah, everything feels different. You're like, why aren't you writing like this?
Exactly.
Yeah,
write better dialogue.
It's a good point. Wow. I feel like we should, for the record, tell people that we're talking about Zammar's book.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
We got Riven Earth, book 1 of the duology, and book of Astea. How do you say it?
Yeah,
I say Astea.
Astea. Okay. That means that's the way it's said. That's you make that choice. And then Sundered Moon, book 2. Honestly, both of these cover, like, I saw the cover of Riven Earth. I cannot tell you which one I like more. I honestly.
Oh, I can tell you which one I like more.
You like number 2? Yeah.
Number 2.
I don't know, man. Something about the Ash Fang.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that. I don't think that's a spoiler, is it?
I just love the blue. It warms my soul.
Yeah. No, I think I like book 2's cover more as well, but it's a marginal thing. I like them both.
Yeah, that's really completely fair. Thing is, I have a complete bias towards blue because if you look in my closet, I have been told that it's blue, completely blue.
You're wearing blue today, so
that's so funny. Yeah. All right, well, what are some things like if you were to give an elevator pitch to somebody who hasn't picked up the book, what do you think you'd start with as far as like, I say elevator pitch, but like whatever, like just throw out, it doesn't have to be an elevator pitch. It could be whatever, it's something that you would say to somebody to read it.
Yeah, I haven't done enough of this like pitching stuff. So
you're good, man.
I'm not very good.
Yeah, no.
I believe in you.
You
can do it.
That's such a tough question for me to ask because I don't know how I would answer it. But I'm just actually so curious.
So okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say a bunch of stuff which make my book sound good, and then you guys can call me out on it and tell me how that's actually none of it is true. All right. So
no. I bet
in that situation.
Honestly, the blurb did a really good job. If I had to.
Yeah. Oh man, I spent so long on that blurb. Like I swear to God, it took like at least as long as it took.
Good blurb.
That blurb sold me. I mean, that like on top of just listening to you speak, like the blurb did a really good job of like getting me on the book. This is for the record.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So I mean, it's a secondary world story, set in a whole other world which we don't really know about, and this particular planet has basically stopped turning. So it's been this way for a long time, and then half of the planet is kind of like the sun is really hot, so it's all scorched away, and the other half, because it never sees the sun, is always very cold. And so life basically survives in this small strip of land called the Sunset Forest, which is very creative. And
I thought so. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is like the people who live on the planet, they have no idea what a sunset is because it's always like that, right?
Oh, so I never picked up on that.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a moment in book 1 where they're like, we don't know why it's called the Sunset Forest, but that's what the Dryads called it, so that's what we call it. Wow. But it's kind of like
that's a little
really cool.
That's one of those cool details that I completely that's not highlighted, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not in your giant book of notes.
My book.
Yeah, so then like basically people have lived there for a long time, and then they're enslaved by dryads, who are these forest creatures. I think everyone more or less knows what a dryad is. And they're enslaved until one dude goes out in the desert and he comes back with the secret of fire, because fire has been banned for reasons. And he basically launches a rebellion. And the story is basically set like 12 years later, but it starts from there. And we kind of follow several characters. So I'd like to think it's very character based. I'd like to think like I built the whole thing around character arcs. I tried to give like very unique personalities with, I want to say like gray characters, but I think partially they're kind of just frustrating and stupid a lot of the time. And try to build the story around them. So it's their journey of like a king who's lost his confidence, finding his way back to the throne. It's a journey of a soldier, a dying old man who finds new reasons to live, and like a politician who tries to plot his revenge, and what goes from there. So yeah, it's not a good pitch.
No, it is.
It's not a good pitch. That's a great pitch.
All right. I mean, Alex, if it made you want to read it. So.
Yeah, it did. Alex, I was curious as to what kind of drew you to the book.
I really just read the blurb and I saw the cover first thing and went, damn, okay.
Yeah,
okay, I gotta add it to the list. And then when you, Zammar, said, hey, I'm looking to see if, because he was giving away free copies of the book. I go, oh, well.
Yeah, I won him over by sending him a copy, I think.
Somebody's got to do it.
A copy of it, so I went, ooh, free book.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about the character-based aspect of it without spoiling anything, I'm thinking to the end of book 2 right now, but without giving anything away, and I don't think this does. I think based on your description, I do agree that it is very character-based, and I think that there's a character or a few characters that I grow way more curious of by the end of the second book, without giving anything away, that maybe we didn't know that they were characters from the start of the book to the end of the book. I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Like they didn't seem that important from the beginning, you mean? Or
I mean, like they're maybe not characters at all.
Oh, Okay.
Like we don't see through their eyes ever.
Yeah.
Before we get into spoilers, I want to just say that because I don't know if that will ruin it for anybody. I mean, I don't know. In particular, it feels like I'll say this: the world building is absolutely fantastic,
great.
so unique, so like dynamic,
and you
original.
did this little thing that you do. Anybody who does this has suckered me. Ancient civilizations. I don't just give any hint of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I love that too. Yeah, I'm all about it. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because for me myself as a reader, I'd like to think of myself as a world building minimalist, where usually when I'm reading, like less is more. I'm not all that interested in your strange fantasy world. Like I don't need to know all the details. I'm fine. Every now and then there's books like A Song of Ice and Fire where like it just draws you in and you want every detail. But a lot of the time I'm a little bit more minimalistic, like kind of like Abercrombie, right? Like he's my favorite author for a reason. But he took whatever 9 books to build out his world, and by the end of it, it's a very detailed and lived-in world. But it's never the focus of his stories from the get-go. And so it's kind of interesting. Like for me as a writer, when I was going into this, a lot of people will build their world, they'll plan it out, they'll have notes and maps and stuff, and like it was. I don't want to say it was secondary to me, but I was really focused on the character arcs, and the world kind of just came on its own. Like I wanted a world which was very intertwined with the plot, because to me, like that's the best way to learn about the world is when it's kind of key to what's happening in the plot, and as the characters learn about it. Because I was trying to keep like a very close narrative perspective, where like you as a reader only know what the character knows the whole way through. So then I just try to use that as an opportunity for like when the characters are learning about the world, and at the same time other people are learning about it, and there's a lot of mystery and intrigue which is tied into the plot, and that's essentially what I tried to do. And yeah, I think it ended up working out pretty well. There's some people, it's interesting, like the amount of people who say that the world building is one of the good parts about this series, because I never would have expected it, but I'm really glad. So.
Yeah, I think it's the aspect of mystery. I don't know. What do you think, Alex? I thought it was I think the mystery was really what did it.
That idea of we don't know a good chunk about the world, and it makes you wonder. It makes you think, oh, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, just how dynamic it was. From I think maybe it sounds like it was unintentional based on how you're describing it. Based on how you grew your characters, or regressed or progressed your characters. Because I definitely, Alex, I don't know how you feel about this. I think we kind of texted about it too. Mm-hmm. There's some, I think most characters, I felt differently about them at the end of the book than I did going through book 1, or at the end of the series, and I did going through book 1.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
So I'm actually curious, because you said you would like think of these characters and the world that they're living in. Who was the first that you thought of? Was it Kaido? Is it Kaido or Kaido? Am I saying
it was Kaido? Yeah.
Kaido.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So his story and Otto's story, I think, were like the 2 seeds for the entire thing. Because I had a specific vision I've kind of alluded to already for Kaido's story, and then I had a vision of this old man kind of traveling through a desert in my head, and having a tough time with it. So then that's like, those are the 2 seeds where everything else spawned out from.
Yeah, I mean, I love the intertwining of King Isaiah, throughout. I thought it was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, it was so good seeing how his influence was just like a looming presence throughout the entire story.
Yeah, and I mean that was like there were a lot of aspects of mental health that I wanted to kind of thematically tackle in it, and so a big part of it was like just a shadow cast by our fathers, like our forefathers, our elders, and like trying to live up to that expectation, like when that expectation is so high as it is on Kaido. And then Isaiah himself is kind of, he's like a hardcore stoic kind of guy. So his character actually is really interesting. So he was inspired by Marcus Aurelius, and the funny thing is, like I haven't read Meditations, right? But like for me, like I'm not a stoic by any stretch of the imagination. But I just love the idea that there's this guy who's like, he basically rules the modern world at that time. And every night he sits down and he's like got so much inner conflict and he writes it down in his journal, right? And that's like his thing. Right? That's what he does. And then some random dudes like find his journal and they start publishing it. They're like, look how much wisdom there is in here. And he's just talking to himself, right? So that's where Isaiah's story was from. Like he's just talking to him. He's like giving himself pep talks. He's like, you gotta be strong. You gotta like don't bend like the tree or whatever stuff he puts in there. So
yeah, that's actually so phenomenal.
Let me explain to you why I laughed just there. I'm reading Meditations right now.
Yeah.
That's
and I was like, oh really? And then you said I haven't read Meditations, and I
that's so epic.
Going, oh, okay.
That's so funny. I think I've only dipped into it. I watched a lot of like there's those videos on YouTube that like kind of summarize the major concepps over like some really cool epic chorus. I'm like, this is it. This is but I'm not, I'm the same way. I'm like, I never could articulate it as well as you just did in terms of talking about how he's a guy that goes to bed at night writing about his inner conflict. But yeah, I mean, that's about as accurate as anyone could paint that. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I loved that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you guys are fantasy fans. Like I'm a fantasy fan. So personally, I love epigraphs. Like it's just, it's one of my favorite things. Mm-hmm. You know, like in Realm of the Elderlings, it starts with like maybe one of my favorite passages ever in Assassin's Apprentice. I know you guys have both read that, but it's just you like that first passage. You just feel like Fitz's pain, like older Fitz's pain, like kind of coming off the page, and you're like, oh man, like just tell me what's happened to you, brother. Like what's going on?
and then we're pulled in. I mean, oh my gosh,
exactly.
I do want to talk about Realm of the Elderlings at some point because I'm about to dive in. After I finish up Empire of the Vampire, I'm diving into Royal Assassin. So, and that's your favorite? Real quick, little sidebar. That's your favorite of the first three?
It's my favorite of the first three for sure. But it's a contender for favorite of the series for sure.
Oh, and are you done with the whole series?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
How long did
I feel like he was.
How long did it take you to finish?
I mean, probably like half a year. I read them over a decent span of time.
Oh wow! Okay. No, I've been taking my time over a year.
Yeah. I mean, some people binge them all, right? So
I can't blame you for that.
Yeah.
The Abercrombie influence was. I agree with Alex. It was so apparent in like the best way possible. I guess I don't know. When do you want to move to spoilers? Because I feel like at some point,
I know. I'm trying to think.
I'm like on the edge here of like wanting to. Actually, I guess
everybody who's not here, we're going into spoilers.
Dude, I'm telling you, people
All
will
right?
be here.
3, 2, 1, get out.
All right.
Well, there was talking about. I forgot who said this. Let's actually go to it. It's in Chapter 19. It's Raya, right? Is having a conversation with somebody. It's one of the first things I highlighted.
You see, he has notes. He came prepared. I
did. Really
this one just hit me, man. This one just hit me. It goes, time, her father scoffed. Time is a luxury kings don't have. And that one just hit me. I know that's like super, I delivered it poorly, but here we
go. Don't worry about it. It's great.
And then there's a few more, but don't ignore me. You guys go, keep going.
I'm curious, like, how did you guys compare the two? Like, which one do you like better, book 1 or 2?
That's a good question. I think I liked aspects. The aspects I liked of book 1 and the aspects I liked of book 2 are very different.
I agree.
I think I ended up book 1 edged out book 2 just simply based off of how I think Otto's arc in the very first book was my favorite part of it.
Oh yeah.
And then in the second book, my favorite arc was Mysades, which was bizarre that he was my favorite arc, you know.
Sorry, I think I dropped out for a second.
You cut out? I said Mysades, right? Or how do you, is that right? Yeah. Mysades, yeah. He was my absolute, I think, favorite arc in the second book in like the weirdest way. Someone who I absolutely despised.
Chance messages me how long had it been since you read the passage of
maybe like a day or two. Yeah, that was like a day or two after that. It just completely shifted how I viewed it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
do you know what we're talking about?
We're in spoilers now, right? So you can probably
we're in spoilers. Yeah, we're in spoilers.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure.
Bringing it up will get this video or get the stream, like YouTube will grab a hammer. I don't think they care enough, but I don't know if they'll grab a hammer and go, no.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, yeah, the R word on my Saudis. Let's just put it that way. I don't mean to laugh, but like that's literally, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Like it was, and that was like that was hard to read in not a bad way. Like it's such an interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever read anything like that. Like in terms of and not in like a. Not in a bad way or anything. It was just very interesting to get that perspective. Like it definitely like coiled my stomach, in a way I think it was supposed to, right?
Yeah, it wasn't easy to write either. I'll give you that. And there's a lot of second guessing when you put something like that in the book. You're like, I don't know if this is going to turn people off or you should keep it. But like, I felt that it was conflicting enough, which kind of made me feel like it should be there. Like I want people to feel conflicted about this guy and what's happening.
You did a great job. Really.
Yeah, seriously.
I cannot give you enough props for that, because really, as I was reading that scene, I'm like, I was sitting there going, oh God. And I mean, I typically have a really good, I can stomach a lot. And
that was a gut punch.
And not feel much. But that, like the specifics that it jumped into.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here getting like, oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I think the reason why when I first brought it up is like the way that we felt about that character, like the reason that I shouldn't have giggled when I did it, but I think the reason that like what you did such a good job of making us despise this character, that when we got to that point, it's just something that it just was a complete, what to me was so fascinating, is just how that flipped in like a scene, It's really bizarre. And obviously, I mean, I think I understand your, I guess, inner reluctance to put it in or whatever, based on what you just said. But I think it accomplished what you wanted it to accomplish. I think at the end of the day, it was really like
his arc seems so much more like it was that. The one thing I didn't understand, so before I continued that thought process, was this going on before the scene that we were shown it?
In my head, no.
Okay.
In your head canon, you can put in whatever you want.
Yeah. I think because he had it was Zonia was his interest, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think they had like a good friendship thing going on, and
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so he didn't really have any romantic interest. He was just he'd been adopted into a family, right? So he was Zonia was almost like a sister figure, I thought. And he had a little daughter as well. Yeah.
So what I thought was really interesting was how, and now that you just pointed it out, that idea of he's in this family. I thought it was so interesting because this horrible event felt like a catalyst for us as the reader to learn more about his relationship with somebody like Zonia, for example. Because beforehand, if we're all just, or at least I was thinking, he's just using her. He's using everybody around him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was, but
yeah.
Yeah. To that degree where you're thinking he doesn't actually give any shits about them. He's using them for the sake of using them, and the second he can, he's going to throw them away.
Yeah.
But seeing that he was willing to stick with them was very... I'm struggling to find the right word for it.
Yeah, I think his reluctance initially to open up and be vulnerable. I don't think it was particularly. It wasn't just that scene and like what happened. I think it's more how it made him vulnerable with Zonya after is what really made us like him as a character. You know, like because you don't want that to happen to anybody, and it happens, and you're like, I mean, this guy's evil. And so we're in this conflict in our head, and then we see him open up and be vulnerable with Zonya, and I hope I'm saying that right, Zonya, and that was what really made Mycetes very interesting overall. I think I don't know. That's just my my take.
Yeah, and I mean that particular moment is, I think, a pivotal point for him as like in his own personal arc as well. Like I think. He had been changing up until then, right? Like he'd been growing a bit more attached to Isha and like more friendly with Zonya and stuff, but he still had a lot of inner conflict. He still felt like that tug of vengeance and like that desire to go back and take power, but he was in conflict there too. He's like, I have this place all to myself, right? Like Ampaka was basically his city, and he's like, why do I have to go back to Heartsong? But then he would remember his hand, like his hand's gone, and like his stump would be itchy, and like it would bring him back to all. Like there's this constant tug, right? Like it's hard to be a good person all the time, but I think I'd like to believe that when someone shows you love and care, like Zonya did to him, like Ahmad and Elwin, they protected him, like all that stuff, it had an impact on him, because I think that is a very human thing. When people show you love, you tend to feel it and you reciprocate in some way.
Yeah. No, I think you did that. Everything about him as a character, from the way we felt about him in the first book. I don't know if you agree, Alex, like how much I hated this person. Like he didn't like absolutely despicable. I hated him. I hated that guy.
I'll give you
I was
this.
like, this guy sucks. I was like,
when I hate a character, and I mean no offense, Zammar, that you've done something truly above and beyond.
Yeah, I don't know.
I only hate 2 characters. Or 3 characters. I take that back.
Is it a spoiler if you tell us who in this particular
one of them
story?
is a spoiler. I won't tell you. What's her name? Umbridge. Umbridge is one of them.
Oh, okay. Harry Potter.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
And then a character from Live Ship Traders. Do you know who I'm talking about, Zammar?
Yeah. I think I do. Is it K? Okay, I won't say anything.
Come on. this is where I'm behind.
I mean, there's a couple, right? There's a couple you could hate in that series, but
okay.
But there's one who most people hate the most.
I'm that guy.
I'm sure I'll know when I get there.
Oh, you'll know.
Yeah,
you'll know.
I feel like I've said his name like 400 times incorrectly. Mycetes. He was. Otto was my favorite character from book 1. So, by the way, to summarize the question you asked 15 minutes ago, book 1 I think slightly edges out book 2, but for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Whereas book 2, like the world building and like what I was referring to earlier, the character to me was the world was a character. Like the world was as dynamic as the characters that you created, and like the link, the aspects of the world that established a link. And then the taking away of that link, and that scene that you're talking about that you wrote at the end of book 1 was like, oh, man, that was like, oh, this is a grimdark book. Book 1, very, very grimdark. I think there are parts of book 2 that are grimdark, but I feel like it edged out to become just more of like truly just epic fantasy, if that makes sense. I don't know, just because the way that it ends.
That's interesting. I think, see, most people have said that book 2 is better. I think that's because there's more resolution in book 2, generally speaking. There's some more action, there's more conflict, you see more resolution. Book 1, I think, is a little bit more introspective. It's a bit meandery. It's kind of like the First Law, where I don't know. I was just
you see, I'm the worst fantasy fan. I do not like action scenes.
Yeah. I mean, You know, the funny thing is, like, I'm not a huge fan of action scenes either. I mean, obviously there is a big old battle at the end of book 2, which
yeah,
I felt like I got to put something fun in there. But
that was epic.
yeah, no, my general philosophy around action scenes, and I say this almost hypocritically because Abercrombie has a lot of great action scenes, but I think, like, generally speaking, for any action, any sort of violence, it has to be impactful and leave an impact on the characters as well. So I find, like, books with overly done action generally tend to not be very entertaining. But, like, Hobb does this. I mean, we keep going back to Hobb, but, like, she does it so well. Where every now and then, like, it's so rare, but every now and then you'll have an action scene and it just leaves you stunned. You're like, oh my god, what just happened, right? And it kind of drains the color out of your face. So in my view of the world, like, even if you're setting a story back in, say, medieval ages or whatever, like, people were not violent all the time. Like, when violence happened, it was a big deal, right? You didn't just go down and murder the guy from the next farm over. Like, it was a big deal. It left an impact on you, and I think that's a very fundamental human thing. So every time there is a moment of action or violence in my books, I want to try and emphasize that like, this has left an impact on the characters, and you know, like, this is not just a run-of-the-mill fight, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're in spoilers now. I forgot. I called them behemoths, but T-Rexes, and the raptors. You know, like, that was, I cannot express. If there anybody who just likes spoilers and is listening to this and hasn't read the book, like, I don't know. It would. I feel like this is something we should have mentioned in non-spoiler. Like, I feel like you should tell people, hey, I have raptors and Tyrannosaurus Rexes that tear people apart, and you should read my book. Like, that should be like one of the biggest hooks that you have.
That's your selling point.
I think that's where the difference is like, I'm a sucker for action, but I also, obviously, appreciating book 1, I do like the introspective stuff.
Yeah.
I find that I learn more about the characters in those moments. But that said, one of the biggest selling points for Malazan for me when I first started it was raptors with sword arms. Like, that simple. You know what I mean? That got me. Oh, that's out.
So, like, I mean, I've always loved dinosaurs, man. It's like a childhood thing. I feel like dragons are overrated. Like, let's bring dinosaurs back. So
yeah,
I had to throw it in there. But the thing is, like, I don't want to tell anyone about it, because even like the pictures and stuff, I didn't put the pictures from book 2 on my website, because I think, like, there's a nice suspense there where when these raptors are attacking them, but it's too dark and they don't actually know what they are. So
that's a good point. So that is a good point. That tension, like me, so I'll tell you how I initially pictured them, Alex. I don't know when you were reading those scenes of, like, I pictured more like a bug, like a locust, like an insect. You know what I mean? And then you described the raptor talent, and I was like, oh.
I'm such a boring reader. I don't have any images in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I didn't imagine them so much as just, like, when it was described, like, the tension that I was feeling is like, oh, this is like, what's that movie with the spiders just, like, coming up underground and, like, pulling people under, like, sewer, like, manholes. I don't know, that sort of thing.
I want to say, like, you're talking about It, and that's probably not right.
No. This is like an old, like, 2007 horror film about giant spiders taking over the world, like that sort of thing. But I didn't picture spiders. That was definitely never in my head. But it was like a very, like, buggy type thing that was in my head for some reason. And then you said the talon, and I started putting it together. And then obviously we get to the picture. I'm like, oh, so that's. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good argument as to not put that in, or not to spoil it, because that tension is something that, that was really good. Damn. All right. All right. I feel like maybe now that you said that about releasing it, maybe if I can just tell people about it, so you don't have to.
I'll advertise it for you.
Yeah,
you're absolutely welcome to.
Yeah. I'll talk about the dinosaurs that absolutely destroy people.
Dude, there's so many, like, good pitches you can have without, like, but I'm scared of doing them because of their spoilers, right? Like, for example, I could have done the world has stopped turning and the chosen one is dead. Like, I feel like that's a pretty enticing pitch.
Dude, my god,
kind of true, but it's also kind of a spoiler. So
man, I feel like I feel like you should just do those things.
Yeah.
I'm not a marketing expert, but
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I was sold on your blurb, all right? And so that said, like that elevator pitch, what you just said to me, I mean, dude, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. So
that's a great one. I don't, and then mentioning dinosaurs, I'm a sucker for that too.
And there's dinosaurs, just as a
Yeah.
little
Hey, they're. I mean, honestly, just saying that, right? Hey, there's dinosaurs. And by the way, I don't want this to sound like at all like I have no idea. You know, I have no idea what marketing advice to give anybody. This is just coming from a reader. You know, like if I hear, hey, there's dinosaurs. Actually, I don't even know if I would have put it. If I heard just that, I don't know if I would have put it together during that moment of tension. And I'm looking for these dinosaurs, and then they get to that moment. I still think it lands, man. I really do. I don't know. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for real. I really don't. Your writing, I think, is what does that. I don't think knowing or not knowing whether or not they were dinosaurs would have changed that for me.
Yeah.
Chance, I love how you just convinced yourself that it was a very good and logical decision, and then convinced yourself that it would be a better idea to talk about the dinosaurs.
Well, he convinced me, and then we started talking about dinosaurs again, and I got carried away.
Well, he pushed you in the right direction, and then you went, oh yeah, and oh wait, no.
Yeah. All right, real quick. Keep talking. I can keep talking. I'm filling up my whiskey again real quick. Give me
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that was like that same thing I was talking about with Abercrombie, where trying to keep a close narrative. So I wanted to, like, you find out as the characters find out, kind of thing, right? Like when the first time you see the picture of the dinosaurs is the first time they see them in the light, and then Raya kind of has a moment to describe what they look like. So then
obviously they don't. Yeah, they don't know them as dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. They're just feathered beasts and behemoths. And like I put in the word raptor after my beta readers, like none of them were, or like not that many of them were catching on that they were dinosaurs from the descriptions. So then I kind of like shoved in the word raptor. I was like, this should make it kind of obvious, you know. It's kind of a stretch, but hopefully it's fine.
I didn't pick up on it, and you said raptor explicitly.
I like how it's more, because that's how raptors were actually like supposed. That's not the Jurassic Park raptor. Like that's actually how. Yeah. What is it like? How they were supposed to be, right?
It's gotta have feathers, man. Like they
gotta have feathers.
Otherwise, they aren't raptors. They're fake.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not just fake. Oh wait, no, man. I had a good joke and I can't remember it anymore.
That's all right. We've all been there, Alex.
But actually, I want to rewind a little bit. I'm gonna agree with Chance. Maybe it's just my current mood for the past year. The introspectiveness of book one has to bring it a little bit higher for me personally than Sundered Moon, which was great in its own right. It felt more like action, which was not bad. Let me be very clear. Just, I think they're different, and it was very interesting. What made you? I wanted to ask, what made you split these two books at this particular point? What? Oh yeah, we're in non-spoilers. What made you choose the moment where Kaido's entering the
council chamber?
The chamber.
Yeah.
To be that point where you split it, or was it never one whole thing? You had already planned it out as this is part one, this is part two.
Yeah. So I mean, it was very much written as one book. Like it is one book, right? It's the Book of Astea, volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So then, like that's how I wrote it. I wrote the whole thing. It was like almost 300,000 words, and I was like, oh crap, no one's ever going to read this.
I would.
Yeah, I appreciate
we did.
Yeah, I know. But then I don't know, like I just started thinking about it a lot, and then I realized like there are two distinct arcs to the story in specific. Like the first arc is really Kaido's story, and it's like him finding his way back to the throne. And then the second arc, like it has more of the other characters and their further development. So like book one, I think, you get some resolution on Kaido, but you don't get that much on, for example, Mercedes. You get something on auto maybe, but like their arcs are very much not complete. And Kaido's isn't either, but it felt like a very distinct spot.
A nice like stopping point.
Exactly, like a nice stopping point. And like it kind of felt like there was like by splitting it off there, I would also give readers an opportunity to just check out as well. Like if they're not enjoying this, I don't want to like make them feel bad about continuing on, and at the same time it gives them a stopping point where they can take a break, they can come back, they can do something else. So intuitively it made sense. The way the end of book 1 is written, it wasn't like in my first draft, that whole scene where Kaido enters the council chamber, like what happens before that with Raya and like her father dying, a lot of that was actually intermingled with the first chapters of book 2. So there was a lot of like rearranging that happened to make it work. So that all happened in the editing process, where I wanted to have like a lot of that cohesive stuff in book 1, like specifically the rebellion, so like the conflict with Cedric and all that, because that was actually spread out between the last chapter of what became the last chapter of book 1 and the first part of book 2. Like those chapters were sort of intermingled through that middle section. So then I just kind of like moved things around and tried to make it as cohesive as I could. So then once we start book 2, one of the nice things is that a lot of the backstory is done now, right? Like we don't have any more flashback chapters. Even Isaiah's chapters, like they're just smaller interludes with smaller epigraphs. And we can just continue with resolving everything that was set up in book 1 from there.
So I wanted to ask another question now I think about it. The way you write woman characters, I read somewhere, and I personally don't like the advice, because I like to write a couple things here and there, and I'm not going to say I'm any good at it, but I thought it was crazy to think that way. But I want to ask even you, Chance, when it came to writing woman characters, did you do... I admit this was Reddit who said this, so...
Where's this going, dude?
It was, think of the character as male, get your head that way, or write the lady character as if you're in their head as a guy, and then change the gender and say that she's a lady.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't do that. I can show you that.
I didn't think you did. I didn't think you did that. I didn't pick that up at all.
I didn't think you did either. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, I don't know, man. You just try to write them as people, right? As much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And they, like, to be honest, like I would occasionally think that, I have to nail these female characters. Like every now and then that thought would cross my mind. But then every time I thought that, I tried to banish it. And I was like, I gotta like not even think about it. Like they're just other characters. They're just other people. Write their stories, and like understand that like, like Jasmine and Raya are very different people, and they're motivated by very different things, right? So I don't know if you can completely take gender out of it ever, like, but you have to understand what the place of gender is in the world, right? So Jasmine, for instance, is very influenced by, like, there's a degree of vanity to her, right? Like there's a degree of like, oh, you have to be pretty and all that stuff. But then that also tied into her character arc, like where she ended up at the end of book 2. It was like a direct evolution and change from that, like intentionally done. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I find it very hard to answer, but it's also one of those things where I'm always unsure. Like I don't know. Like we're all guys here, but like I'm always unsure. Like if girls read these characters, like will they like them? Are they going to say, oh, it's just some other dude thinking he's good at writing female characters and he's doing a shitty job of it? Like I don't know. I just try my best to treat them as ordinary people, and I hope it turned out well.
Yeah, as a dude, I guess I can't really. I'm in the same boat. I don't know. Like I didn't feel like reading. I felt like they were compelling in their own way, the way that you wrote them. Like I definitely felt like the aspects of. And this is overarching. This is a human being thing, but I think you did it particularly well with Jasmine. Is living into your fears, and like I think the way that we got from where we were in book 1 to the end of book 2, and how she gets I don't want to say mutated is not the right word. I don't have the right word right now in my head. But her fight with Mercedes, that what ended up happening to her and her ability to overcome all that and still stand up in front of people, by the end, it's that to me is what's compelling, like whether or not it's a guy or like, that's like it doesn't matter. Like it's a human being.
Yeah.
And I mean that Reddit is an interesting place.
I know it is. That's why I was like,
so in conclusion,
let's see what he thinks.
Alex, Reddit is an interesting place. That's all I have to say about that, dude. Man. I think that you turned a lot of tropes on their head. I'm gonna go back to this, even though we got past the hard topic, but Mercedes' rape is also something that typically doesn't happen to male characters in books. And so you portrayed it in such a visceral way that, it's perhaps a perspective that maybe many people haven't seen. And it's hard to read, of course. Like I think any scene like that in any book I've ever read that has it in it is hard to read. And like you said, it was hard to write. I imagine it's even harder to write and to make that choice. But at the end of the day, based on how you've talked about your writing of characters, it feels like you almost don't have. At the end of the day, you're the author and you have total control over it. And I understand that there's different points of thought on this, but it seems like you let the characters and the way they are in the world live in your head. And this is a compliment, by the way, because I think it's an impressive feat. Not to mention just like the polish of your prose and everything. The story from the narrative lines from point A to point B. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh shit! I lost my train of thought. That's the whiskey. And I was on a really good path.
Something about Mercedes.
Yes. It's just your ability to convey that in such a. I'm going to use the word in a sensitive way, even though it was. Really not, but at the end of the day, that's not your choice. Like it's something that happened to him in this is his character and it happened to him. And you're telling us, and you're like, you come up with your own thoughts on him, I think that's what hooked me about your writing is, and I particularly attached myself to Otto in book 1. And I really want to dip into the mental health stuff as well with Kaido, because I think there are a lot of, even Jasmine, like I actually connect with a lot of the characters in the story as a whole, in different ways, but Otto for me, just the old sick guy who lost his, wife, and now he's got his daughter who she's sun touched. Yeah. And you're also dealing with aspects of racism, mental health, environmental, like there's so many deep themes in this book, but I feel like you don't really, it's not heavy-handed, if that makes sense. It's like realistic. It makes sense. It's like everything about this story is just, it's well-rounded. And the way that you write your characters is just, I've probably gone on a tangent here. But the characters live and you're the voice. You get it down on paper and you express what they feel and what they see.
Yeah,
Chandler said it perfectly. I think really, it was like the character, or we got a person over here living their life, and you're just up there, just trying to weasel your way into their head and saying, "Okay, what's in there?" Like, okay, right there, let's put that to the paper. And that happened. Okay, let's put that on the paper.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much for the kind words, man. I really appreciate that. And like that's more or less my process. Is I'm not that much of a planner. I vaguely tried to do some outlining, but for the most part, everything just starts changing a lot once I start writing. Sometimes you just get in a flow state, and the story takes you where it takes you. And for me, like the vast majority of this book was quote unquote gardened. Of these books, like they were. Just I was winging it, man. And like that's what I try to do, is just try to get be as close to my characters as possible. Like I have a vague idea of where I know I want the story to go, but on a scene by scene basis, I don't want to plan it out too much, because I want to let the characters speak naturally and make their own decisions naturally. And sometimes that kind of surprised me, right? Like, like near the end when Raya is killed, like that was like I was shocked by it, to be honest. I got teary-eyed at the end of that scene. And like, even though like I kind of had a vague idea that I know where this is going to go, it kind of felt like it just kind of went there automatically. Like Raya was moving on her own to protect her king, and like that's just what she was going to do. That, like, there was no way that she would do anything else. So
yeah. Oh my God. And it's so earned with her too. It's like it's such an arc for her. Like I guess people would describe her as a flat character, but by no means would she be like she everything she does is for her purpose. And I think it's kind of important to have those kinds of characters, because there are people like that. There are just people that live that way. And it felt so earned in obviously a sad way, because we lose her. I honestly, I thought Jasmine died like 3 times in book 2. I was like, all right, Jasmine's dead. I'm like, all right, like here we are. But the fact,
job of making it feel like, oh yeah, anybody can die. Crap.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was like, all right, so she's dead.
That's objective.
Yeah, and then Kaido, I mean, technically dead, right? But him living inside of the earth, like the nature, right? Being one with the world, and then also we still kind of don't have that conclusion of him resolving everything with that, because he has to pass the second test and all that. And so I guess that leads us to ask, where are we going next? Wait, what are you working on right now?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So I mean, this story is done. Like the book of Astea, these 2 books, I think I wanted to leave it a little bit open-ended. I wanted to leave it so that there's a story continues that's never written, right? Like this world continues on without us. That was intentional. So yeah, this story is done, but I just now, pretty recently, I finished the second draft of the novella, a companion novella. So that'll be set, I think it's 3 years before these 2 books. And it's just following the same characters, and it's just a cozy fantasy. So like,
oh, nice.
As a way of thanking people who read the books, and if for some reason they like them enough that they want to spend a bit more time with these characters and in this world, then that's an option. So I think it's actually pretty fun. Like you get to see Otto and Tilly in that together, and you see Kaido interacting with his father and stuff like that. So like that hopefully should be out pretty soon. This winter is the plan. It's called A Sojourn in the Sunset Forest. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's in the back of like the Kindle. We can pick it up. Yeah, sign up
I
for
thought
it.
that was a book, novella that was already out, and I just hadn't gotten to.
Oh no, it's not out yet, unfortunately.
Oh,
but,
okay, that's what I thought too. I was like, okay.
Yeah, but I think
crap, missed something.
Yeah, with that novella done, like I'm gonna put this story aside. I don't think there's need to continue in this world, and I've got other stories whirling up around in my head that I'm excited to get started on.
Sweet.
Awesome.
I think when we Alex, when you go back and you should timestamp this video with like one massive non-spoiler spoiler.
Oh, that is what I'm gonna do. I thought you were gonna say I should do the timestamps of like the small little sections we go into.
No. But I think like a front and back end non-spoiler is kind of cool, as we've kind of moved into that here, because I feel like everything that I wanted to cover in terms of characters in the spoiler section we've gone through. So what do you think, Alex? Unless we're missing something, what do we think?
I mean, I'm kind of curious on what your guys' favorite scenes are.
Okay. That's a great question.
Oh, man. I don't.
This will be a small spoiler section in the timestamp. This will be a small spoiler section in the timestamp. I have a few, dude. I really genuinely have a few.
There is one, but I can't like. You go, Chance, while I try to figure out like how.
Okay, let me tell you the 3 that there's more than 3, but let me tell you them, and then maybe in me explaining them, I can pick a favorite of those. All right. I really like Otto and Tilly. I think her giving birth and Tilly dying was heartbreaking, and I think his disdain for the baby was I don't know, something about that scene and just like the what it means for that character going forward. It's just so compelling. That said, on the tail end of that is also Otto's death or yeah, no, not his death, Jilly's death.
Mm.
Jilly's death, where that gave me some Realm of Elderlings vibes. And that was like, that one was a tearjerker for me. There's something about animals, man. Just fucking, it kills me inside when that sort of thing happens, dude. I think obviously the behemoths, Raya's last stand, the behemoths tearing out of the jungle or the forest. Man, dude, there are actually so many good scenes. And then Kaido and Willow, and at the end of book 1, I thought that was a scene where I was like, oh, like this is the real deal. Like, here we go. You know, that's where I thought that for sure. I was like, oh shit, this is the real deal. Like he's not going to pull any punches. Like, this is it. You know. So I guess at the end of the day, that'd probably be, yeah, that probably tops it. That's tied with Jilly's death.
Yeah,
I think.
So for me, it is either Kaido and Willow, or hold on, Otto's realization that he broke his promise to his wife.
Mm.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I just, something about both of them, so good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a decision. Okay, Kaido and Willow.
Yeah. If it just felt like when that was something, like you said, you had that scene in mind, right? Like that was a scene that you had ready to go, locked and loaded.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, it was just so visceral, and you know, I don't know. It seems like you made a D&D character and had like a background story for them. You know? And, oh, did I just get a thumbs up by accident? That's crazy.
Oh wait, what?
That's funny.
It's like it does it. That's weird. I guess because I did this. Yeah, I don't know. My phone. There it is again. I did it.
We're doing it like outright, and you're just kind of giving it tiny little.
Like, dude, did it again.
That's just like you.
What was that? So that was your favorite scene, Zammar? That was like when you were writing it.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I had a lot of scenes that I was particularly attached to. Another one of the keystone scenes was at the end of book 1, when Raya's at Raya's father's funeral, when the three of them kind of come together at that moment, because I think that was like Raya's this really tough, hard person, and then when she breaks down, it kind of is the impetus that pushes Kaido to the throne, and he realizes like he's put all these burdens on her, and it's this moment when he has to step up. Because I think like that relationship between those three is kind of like the heart of the story. Is really like Jasmine and Kaido, like they both depend so much on Raya, and it's like they both learn and like pick themselves up when she falls, right? Like that's like how it goes in both books. At the end of book 2, like Jasmine looks in the mirror and she's like what happened to her is really hard for her to deal with, but at the same time, like the impetus for her to get out of that orphanage and get out into the city and do something about it is when she realizes that Raya's gone. And if Raya's gone, like there's no one here anymore. Like she was the person that held everything together. So to me, like that moment when Raya breaks down is probably like one of the most important moments in both books, is because like yeah.
Wow.
You're trying to convince us or that
dude, he's right.
I have a different favorite scene.
Yeah.
I won't fall for it.
I like that.
I'm not changing my decision. Close, but I won't.
Like, I guess when you have a character that's so like I'll call her hard-headed, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation. But you see how much of a stone she is, and then she kind of crumbles a little bit. Yeah, that's That is a very compelling moment, dude. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was thinking just now about all the things that we haven't talked about, and I mean, what is it? It's maybe 800 pages for the 2 books, yeah.
750 or something,
yeah, and
400.
how much goes on? Like we haven't. I guess this will be another. We're still going to be in a spoiler section here, just for your cues, Alex, when you're going through the VOD.
Oh
at 1 hour exactly.
Oh yeah.
But we haven't even talked about the genocide. Of like, we haven't talked about that, and it's like such a massive thing.
Oh.
And I also hate myself because every time I say something so like a serious word, I also follow it. It just shows how uncomfortable I am talking about genocide. It's seriously like it's such a dark moment. It's such a dark thing that happens. And it's something that has happened in history and is going on. It's like something that it's real. It's very real. And then also seeing Kaido's difficulty, that an inner conflict that he has with making that choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's I wanted to put the characters in an impossible situation. Like, how do you make the right decision in that case? Like, either, like, as far as they know, that's the only way to save their people is to go and kill all the Nightlings. So then, like, how do you make that decision? And then the kind of rift that it creates and how different people react to that decision. Like, Kaido, of course, is extremely conflicted and he finds that he can't accept it. But at the same time, Raya she's just hyper focused, right? Like, she's like, this is what we have to do. This is what I'm going to do. And so she goes down a dark path. And I wanted that to be realistic. I wanted that to be like, this could happen. And it kind of follows with her character. And at the same time, like, this is like that was the reason why she's always loved Jasmine, is like one of the reasons I put that little thing in there is because like she was always driven by like her father died of the plague, and now there's a threat that Jasmine's going to die of the plague. And so that was always like a major driving factor into like her spiral into darkness, I guess.
Yeah. Because she's the primary initiator. Like, she's the one out there getting her hands dirty. Like she's doing the killing, doing the genocide.
On the front lines going.
Yeah. And then there's consequences, right? She unleashes a dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. Because they kill the Nightlings, and then everything that the Nightlings were protecting them from starts to come to the forefront almost immediately, in like a well-earned way. But like it's right there, it's in front of her face, and it's like, oh, so that's what they were doing. That's what they were protecting everybody from. It's seriously epic, and the scale. See, I don't even know what I'm doing, dude. That's crazy. The scale of everything that you wrote is so. It feels crazy that you fit it in, 2 volumes. That's half a Sanderson book right there, and you fit so much in. Like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that again. I hope you don't take that as an insult, because
no.
It's
to me.
It's more that he has just such thick books, but you fit so much into.
That's bigger than a Sanderson book.
Yeah, you fit so much in not a lot of space, and you gave it so much depth too. You managed to, and I think that speaks to the prose. You gave it so much depth, man. You really. I was stunned. From top to bottom.
Yeah. I have to agree with Chance there. Really, I did not expect. All right, I'll do this. I didn't expect anything. I go into most books that I read not expecting anything. But when I read the book, I just was
4 agreements.
Surprised. I'm always surprised if I don't know anything, which is a delight. But I was surprised by the emotional depth that you gave everything. The depth that you gave to the world for like the ancient civilization of humans that did they sacrifice themselves, or was that left ambiguous?
Yeah, no, that's how they made the link way back in the past.
It was such a good. I loved that scene. It was so good. Oh, that's another contender too. With you're still trying to trick me. I won't let you. But the scene with what was his name again? The Nightwing.
Oh, Nile.
Yeah.
Nile.
Yeah.
Nile and
it's a good character.
Kaido, their scene of Kaido chasing after him after Nile discovers that he's been butchering his people, and how Nile still chooses to forgive him, and then such a good scene.
Yeah.
I think how about sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. How about how the Nightlings were just accepting of, this is the role, this is what it is. You guys are gonna kill all of us. And that's how we operate. We know that this is how it's gonna be, that's how it's gonna be. Hands off. You go ahead, do your thing, kill us. And then also it yields nothing. Like, it yields a temporary relief for I guess if you're Kaido, you can argue that it yields exactly what he wanted, because he eventually ends up making the choice and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, like, their death and the cure to the plague, it's a temporary cure. It doesn't solve the problem. It's only a Band-Aid on a symptom. And so I don't know. It was truly. I hope Zammar, you understand how much. I hope you understand how much why, like, this is earned praise. Like, this is like, you have so many good scenes in your book, and it's crazy. I mean, it's a matter of time for me until this thing people start reading it and really getting into it. And I mean, they're already reading it. You see it with the Kindle Unlimited stuff, and
that's
it's just such a good story.
Are going to be allowed to gloat that we already read and say, hey, look, you got to look forward to a lot of great scenes. This guy's really good at what he does.
Yeah. You guys are way too kind. I just
just like Chance said, earned praise.
Earned praise. Well, thank you so much, guys. I get it's a very hard road to write a book. There's a lot of hours spent on your own, kind of agonizing over every word. Chance, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Agonizing over every word and having so many doubts, and you're reading masters, right? Like, you're reading Hobb and Abercrombie, and it's hard to remember that they've written, like, you might be reading like the 10th book someone's written, or like Sanderson's case, you might be reading like the 20th or whatever. Like, they're masters for a reason. They've spent time at this, they've had practice, and then a lot of them, they have infrastructure around them. Like, Sanderson probably has like 1 billion editors who can help make his books even better and stuff like that, right?
And they still won't take his words out. They still leave him in there.
I know.
They're like, 600,000, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring it on in. You're good.
But yeah, like, it's hard to and there are days where you just want to quit, right? Sometimes you get beta reader feedback and they're like, oh, that was a useless character, you should just take him out. And I was like, oh man,
what?
And there's stuff like that, which, like, it was a long, hard road, but then, it's always such an honor when I have people like you guys who read the books and actually find that it connected with you. It's like the greatest feeling of all time, and I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, man. I mean, and again, like I said, most characters, right? And you introduced Varian, right? And we meet Varian with Kaido when he's going around as what was his alias?
Caius.
Caius. He's going around as Caius, and we meet Varian in book 1, and then we get a Varian perspective at several points in book 2, and we really see just kind of you see it in that scene, which you could also argue is a great scene, is Kaido and him having that connection, and Kaido understanding his hatred for him. I mean, dude, there's so many things, and I'm talking it out now, right, in reflection of your story, and reading it, you just kind of know something's clicking, and then now that we're conversing about it, I'm like, wow, this is just, I'm articulating all my thoughts for the first time, because this is my first time having a discussion about it, which I think is one of the reasons why this whole booktube thing is so cool, that we can have these discussions. Like, Alex and I can connect on this book, or this series, and I don't know, man. It's absolutely fascinating. I cannot praise it enough. All I want to hear is what was the one-liner you threw out in a spoiler? Just say it now. We'll leave it in a non-spoiler section.
What was it again? The world is dead, and the world has stopped turning, and the chosen one is dead.
dude. I mean, come on. Hollywood.
Okay.
Like, all
maybe
right,
I'll start using it. Yeah.
Please start using that.
How did you feel about Varian becoming a POV character in book 2? Was it like a surprise?
I loved it too. Yeah, I love being able to see that that perspective of the people of the East. Finally, like, we're able to get into the head of people from the East and understand where they are diverging in their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you did a fantastic job of showing the differences in culture and belief.
And he's next to I think my Saudis, and he was the most Joe Abercrombie-esque character of the two. In terms of just like, and again, it's not an insult by any means. I think it's actually wonderful how and I think it's more of an homage, less of a it's totally warranted. But Varian had one of the more unique character voices. Like when I was reading Varian, when I was reading my Saudis, like and I guess Otto is actually now I'm saying it, dude. Everybody, it's crazy. This is what I'm talking about in reflection. But in terms of something that's so similar to a Joe Abercrombie character, I think of the heroes in particular, and being able to see, just the soldier just getting after it against. By the way, dinosaurs. If this is in a non-spoiler section, I don't know. You're gonna timestamp this, Alex. It's up to you.
Wait, no.
Yeah. It's your choice.
Back to non-spoilers.
No, I think we're spoilers.
I just want people to know that there's fucking dinosaurs, dude.
I'm gonna give that little small section. Remember, there are dinosaurs. Non-spoiler and go back to spoiler.
Dude, I don't know, man. It's just so. I know we're bouncing between but I think it's important when people come. Eventually, when hopefully people see this and see you talk about your work. Because I think it needs to be spoken more of, because it's absolutely fascinating. It's polished prose. You care, and it's the beginning of your journey. Am I right? Is this the first thing that you've written?
First thing I published. I did write something before, but I never really put it out there.
Okay.
Yeah, that was more of a lit fic kind of book. It wasn't fantasy, and it really wasn't that good. I just had to vomit out some word.
I feel like I heard you talk about that with somebody.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was. But okay, interesting.
I actually want to say something. While Chance was talking, he brought up Mercedes, and this just clicked in my head. I think that Mercedes is kind of a lot like Glocta.
You think so? Okay, yeah. Just
in that sense of, he's so bitter towards the world. I mean, not in the sense that, I'm bitter towards the world and I'm going to stay this way whether you like it or not. But a little bit more in the sense that he has been abused by others with Raya. Was it one of his arms or one of his hands?
Yeah, one of his hands, yeah.
Yeah, I think he has a distinct voice for sure.
Oh, yeah. And how Mercedes kind of, I feel like he's sort of similar to Glock. He's just bitter and trying to use everybody around him and just it felt like he just was he was a cynic. He was out for people to suffer. And then he gets that relationship and that he gets that family, like you said earlier. And then he starts to grow. So it kind of felt like he was a Glocta-esque character who grew beyond Glocta. See what I mean?
Yeah.
I think so. He's definitely not as competent. He's generally, he's coming up with all these plots, but he's not very good at acting.
Yeah. Glocta's definitely more competent. I think I agree. I disagreed with you, Alex, and then you actually brought it around. I agree now. Which this conversation is as dynamic as Zammar's characters. But no, I absolutely. No, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say some people have told me Otto is Glocta-esque, but I think that's because he doesn't like stairs and he's always limping.
And he has a yeah. There's definitely some Glocka inspiration in your characters for sure. Oh, I just kicked my tripod. But yeah, no, I think the voice is as distinct. I think Glocka is a little bit more self-loathing, where Mysades is a little bit less. Like he's more pompous and arrogant, whereas Glocka like hates himself. He's just like
That's fair.
Yeah, that's where I disagreed, but I think overall, Alex, yeah, I think you're right. I do. Yeah.
Could be some
I
similarity.
think actually I'd agree with you. Just on the mental level, definitely not Glocta, but on the outward level, the way he interacts with the world, I think it's a little bit more like Glocta, not in the competency area, but
yeah.
How did you guys feel about the way his story ended? Mysades.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's finally redeeming himself in some way. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. And there's your Joe Abercrombie, dude. And
that's my Abercrombie.
Yeah, there he is, man. He just like, everybody wants to be better, or everybody wants something, and then at the end they're just themselves. That's just like what it's gonna be. Yeah, no, I thought. I mean, I feel like we've really harped on.
Spoiler.
Oh yeah. I feel like we've harped on Mysades a lot, but I think he's the most.
So good.
He's one of the most distinct. Like we see him like Varian's very distinct, but Mysades is very distinct, and also we see him from book 1 to book 2. So I think we get a lot of him, and obviously like by visceral I just don't like him in book 1, and not as like how he's written. I just don't like the character. I don't like as a person. And then with the sexual assault, we start to see a vulnerable side of him. And dude, I mean, his ending, how he dies, all of it kind of, you're just like, all right. I mean, he goes back to being exactly who he was in book 1, like right away. As Jasmine is trying to, she does what she thinks is right, and she's trying to escape, and he fucking deserves it. He deserves to die. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's a reminder at the end. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot I hated this guy.
I forgot this guy's he's an asshole.
Yeah. It's one of the things which I'm most proud of is there's a lot of people who have changed their favorite character between book 1 and 2. Like a lot of people end book 1 and like Raya is their favorite character. At the end of book 2, they're just very conflicted. They're like, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know if I like her or not. Or a lot of people just say it's irredeemable what she did. Like she's not a favorite at all. And there's other people who will say like she was in the right the whole time. So I like that I was able to leave it ambiguous. And then a lot of people are conflicted about Mysades as well, which I'm really happy with. Like that was completely the objective. I don't think anyone liked him after book 1, but after book 2, some people are like, "Oh man, I'm not sure."
Yeah, I think his ending brought us back to that hatred a little bit. We feel more bad for how everything kind of works out after we again see him be vulnerable. But at the end of the day, you're just like, oh, he's still that piece of shit. Like he is, like he was a piece of shit, and he is still a piece of shit. Like a piece of shit who has a friend that's like a sister and a child that's like a daughter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Obviously, like if you were to, I forgot the daughter's name of Isha. So Isha, if you were to ask Isha, she loves this guy. If you were to ask Zonya, she loves this guy. Like this is family. But you have his internal thoughts. You see his actions, and we feel the way that we feel.
Yeah.
Raya. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that just speaks to my, like you said, like just they have the information they have, and then they do the action. They make the choices they make, and then you factor in Raya's father. And then you factor in Jasmine getting the plague. It all rationalizes for me. I see why people would say that it's irredeemable what she does. but again, it just speaks to your ability to write, dude. Like it's incredible. It really truly is. I'm excited to see whatever the next project is, really.
Oh yeah. Whenever you make that next project, I'll make sure to drag it up to the shelf.
Oh,
Yeah, man.
That's so kind of you. Thanks. I mean, I assume the ending, like everything that happened after the dinosaurs, was okay then, if you don't hate it.
Yeah, no, the ending was good. I thought everything up to that point was grimdark, and then it was just epic fantasy, which is not a bad thing at all. I think having morally ambiguous characters and then also an ending, right, is okay. But you also leave the ending ambiguous. Like you leave the world out on a, like the world's still turning, and which I thought was well portrayed. I don't know, man. This is an exceptional piece of work. I think you should be very proud.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It really is.
Now you can say every mean thing that you've been holding back.
All right, let's hang up and then I'll fucking. Okay.
All right.
No, dude. I don't think, like, as far as like, I think my enjoyment of book one and in parts of book two, if you're just talking about things, like, again, I just enjoy the introspection of book one, and then we get all of what we get in book two, and I'm by no means complaining, but it's just like, I think me enjoying book one is more about me than it is about what you wrote. You know what I mean?
I completely agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear it.
I think the only thing I would say I just did not like, and I think it's just about me in that situation, was if I feel like a romance doesn't need to be there. Do you know where I'm about to go, Zammar?
I think so.
I'm just curious if you remember the little section I put in my 1,500 word review. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But I think the one criticism I did have was Raya loving Yasmin, or what did I say that right? Is it Yasmin or
Jasmine?
Jasmine.
I mean, I said Jasmine. Yeah.
I just didn't think the reason I'm saying yes, by the way, is Stormlight.
I know.
It's conditioned me to say J. Why?
Yeah.
Also because I'm reading John Gwynn right now, and every time he puts a J, it means Y.
Is that right? Okay, yeah.
It's very jarring prose. Yeah.
Exactly.
In a good way.
It is.
Yeah.
But I just felt like maybe it's just me, but there didn't need to be
like a little love triangle thing going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, I love you because you are my friend. You are a great friend who I cherish a lot. And I, of course, don't want you to die.
Yeah. I mean, that could have been how it went down. I mean, I'm not really sure like how to address it. It just kind of felt instinctually correct to do it this way. But I can imagine an alternate universe where, like, yeah, maybe they were just really good friends. But to me, it felt like it really was there just to try and add depth to Raya's character. Where, like I said, like, this is very hard to put words on. Like, that's just how Raya was to be. Like, she was.
Fair enough.
She just, like, in my head.
All the same.
I get it, man. Like, love triangles are unpopular for a reason, right? But I wanted it to be clear that there's no, like, this love triangle is resolved. Like, there's no like Jasmine's not going to.
No, there's not the garbage. Is it there? Yeah. I don't actually know if it's on this shelf, but I once read Fourth Wing for a book club.
Oh yeah.
There's a love triangle there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is, I think, I mean, obviously it's your criticism, Alex. I get it. I also agree with you, Zammar, about how it feels resolved. Like, it doesn't feel ever really like Jasmine's gonna go in that direction. So it just feels kind of like this undiscovered love that Raya has, where she knows, she's aware. And I mean, even Jasmine's aware, but it's not an option for either of them,
Yeah. It's I think, like, it's a big part of Raya's character is she's found it really hard to find her own purpose in life, right? This is something like her father told her, like, when are you going to stop working for Kaido? Like, when are you going to stop doing Kaido's job? When are you going to, like, because she doesn't want to be vice reign, right? Like, she's running the kingdom, but she's never wanted that, like, from the get-go. But she's doing it because, you know, like, it's almost an unhealthy codependency she has on her friends, like on Kaido and Jasmine. So for her, it's like, I think it's very hard for her to move past things, like move past those two and like find her own purpose in life. And so for me, it's like the relationship kind of felt like that too, where she always has this inner conflict of like, I know I shouldn't love her anymore. Like, I know I should have moved on, but like, I just haven't, and I can't, and it's hard and it's difficult. And so, you know, like, it's not healthy by any stretch of the imagination, because this is like been years, right? That she's just had had these feelings, but I don't know. To me, that's just how she came across. Like, she's very, very, a very focused person, and, you know, not very, she's kind of closed in, if that makes sense.
You know what? You've convinced me. You've convinced me.
Yeah. No, I go ahead, Al.
You know,
sorry.
I like the point. I like it. I like it now.
She's my favorite character.
In retrospect, I think I like it.
I think she's my favorite character now.
No, don't go that far. Don't do that. You don't get to do that.
It's hard to edge out Otto. It's hard to edge out Otto for me, just simply because just his journey from point A to point B, and especially just like, I love that reluctant hero, you know, like, I'm such a sucker for it. So that for me was it. I think Raya is a very, very close second. And again, building on what you were saying, she's very competent, but she never wants to make the decisions. But it feels like up until obviously the genocide that she would make the right decision. You know what I mean? It feels like if she were given the responsibility, she would make the right choice. And I mean, even you factor in her emotion with her father and Jasmine, it still seems rationally, with the information they have, like their only choice. It's just not. It's not the right choice by any means, but for the love of their people, it's the one that they want to make. You know, I don't know. It's very interesting. It really is.
She's very rational, and she's also prone to tunnel vision. Like, I think once she gets focused on something, like, she tends to kind of put the blinders on, and like, that's the way we're gonna go. Whereas that's the one thing which Kaido's better at, is like, he finds it hard to focus on anything, but at least like he stays open to other options.
I can relate to that a little bit, just because. So when I decide this is the way to do a thing, I typically tend to brute force anything else with that particular way.
Yeah.
So, do any of you know how to solve quadratics?
Are you speaking a different language?
So, I mean, I am an engineer by training, so in theory.
Okay. Just, you know how you split the middle term? Yeah.
Okay.
I brute forced that with guess and check each and every time when the coefficient was more than 1.
Right. Yeah, sorry. Let me nod my head and agree. Yes, totally.
A friend of mine had to say, "Okay, come on, Alex, you can't do this."
I don't think that's the way to do it.
Oh my gosh,
doing pretty well in the class too.
Let's go, man. That's the way to be. Alex, who's your favorite character in the book of Astea? Yeah, I think that's cool that we agree there.
I love parent-child relationships in any media. I cannot explain why. It's my favorite type of relationship. It's that, and then second is best friends who are forced to be on opposing sides.
Okay.
And that the relationship between Otto and his daughter, that's so nuanced, and then he's picking up all these sun-touched children along the way, and then he goes to that one man's house who's hidden his sun-touched son in the basement, and how he says, "This is wrong. Come on, I'm taking your kid." Isn't that what he did? Okay.
Yeah. He goes, "Hey, motherfucker, you're gonna stop doing that."
We're done.
And he's like dying. He's dying, so he just doesn't care. He's like, "But I care." He doesn't care about anything other than you getting his baby to a place. Like, he thinks he's doing Tilly a service by getting his baby. Like, he's fulfilling his promise by doing that. And then obviously we have the scene that you like later where he realizes that that's not the case, but he doesn't care about anything. And then he comes across these children and he makes choices that actually says otherwise. Yeah. Right? Like, he cares a lot about these things just because it's in his heart. You know, he's just like a good person. And I think that's maybe why he's my favorite character. And I think I think that's probably the most relatable part. It's just like, you know, sometimes you do things that are inconvenient for yourself when it feels like the right thing to do. And I think he does that often. And then also he does it in a way where it's not a right choice. It's so weird. It's very strange. Like, I don't know how to explain it otherwise.
He's so good because he has that depth. He has that nuance of, like, we see what's on the surface, but there's so much behind that layer, that curtain that you're showing us.
Yeah.
We have that kind of, what's the word? There's so much.
He's an onion.
Like, stuffing. They have so much. You have so much rice behind the curtain, just waiting.
So much rice. So much rice behind the curtain.
Nice. So, like, two funny facts about Otto. So the first thing is, when I was having beta readers read this book, I think I've mentioned this to a few people, but I always love when Otto is someone's favorite character because it's very self-validating. Because I've had beta readers who read this, 2 of them actually, who told me that Otto's story should be removed because it doesn't add anything to the plot, or it doesn't add anything to the book. Which to me, like, it was really hard to hear that criticism after I'd spent all this time, like, but also like
writing Otto. Yeah,
I know. To me, it's like it's the emotional heart of the story, right? It's like his story. So he was always going to be in it, and there was just no way I could take him out. But the other thing is, he's actually the hardest character to write because putting on his voice was just really unintuitive for me. Because he's got that sort of rough around the edges kind of voice to the prose, and my objective was like to make that, because he's very fragmented, right? Like, his sentences and his chapters are very fragmented. They're very, like, kind of punchy and to the point, Abercrombie-esque in a way. But I wanted to make it so that it's more fragmented when he's more sick, and then once he starts to, like, get better, once he sees about returning to Myria, the prose changes and it becomes a little bit smoother and a little bit more natural. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing which I don't think anyone would pick up on, but it's also the kind of thing which I slaved at. It was like, it took so many hours to try and just in the editing process and going over his sentences over and over. So
it's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So who is your favorite character to write?
So, like, Kaido and Raya both have voices which are very intuitive. Like, that's just how I write naturally, is kind of the voices that those two have. For the other characters, it was always like a little bit of, okay, I really need to embody this person, you know, like, how can I be Mercedes and come up with stuff.
It's a tough one.
I think probably Kaido or Raya are my favorites. Most people don't like Kaido. He's my sweetheart. I think Kaido's great.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kaido in the first
is,
book,
if it wasn't Otto,
particularly
then it would be Kaido.
Oh, really? He's number 2 for you?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
I felt a lot, and there are some things that Kaido deals with that are close to home, and I'm just I felt like you know, I don't know, man, like, you can do it. You know, like, you know, just like, man, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And again, it's a sensitive topic, but he just, and maybe that's, again, this is nothing about your writing of him. It says more about me. And I think one of what's so good about your writing is that it's effectual to that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It draws on those hard things that we deal with within ourselves, which I think is such a hard thing to find. You don't find it in every story, but in this one you do, you know? So I don't know, man. It's going back to your praise. It's well earned, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
just you did such a good job of diving in there, as I said earlier, and showing us these are the thoughts, these are the introspections. The reason I love Kaido so much is that when we get his chapters, we're able to see that slog, that feeling of, God, I don't want to get out of bed today. Not just like that normal, hey, I don't want to get out of bed today, I want to sleep, but more, God, it feels so
The depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that was intentional. Like Kaido's chapters are by far the most introspective. They have the most long passages, paragraph after paragraph, where there's no dialogue, there's no action. It's just him in his head, right, thinking. And you contrast that with Raya. Raya's chapters have very little introspection. She just does, right? Like she just takes action, and that was all intentional. And I mean, you try your best to capture when it comes to mental health and stuff like that, to do it justice. And at the end of the day, there's always a bit of anxiety. Like that was probably my biggest anxiety when I hit publish, was like, I hope I'm doing this justice. I hope, people are not going to be offended by what I put out there. But everyone handles those situations differently. And I hope that I captured it decently well for Kaido, at least the way he came to reality in my head.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, my book fell. He is, I think that means yes. It was just nodding its head. It's his voice, right? I mean, it's your voice, but it's also his, I think you did. I'll say that. And again, I laugh because it's talking about something uncomfortable, which again is just like kind of, that's just me. And I'll be the first to admit it, but it's true. You do. And you really do. You capture it. And like you said, everybody deals with it differently. And I think that's why I was like, come on, man, like, you could do it, just like get through it. And it's cool to root for him. And then also it's just like, man, just fucking do it, dude.
It's so frustrating. I know.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's like, man, like you're capable, you're competent, you're capable.
Get
and
your
then
act
obviously,
together.
sometimes we see he's incompetent, in the flashbacks. But then you also throw in the nuance of his relationship with his father, and then you start to understand, like, it's not even incompetence, it's pressure, and he's folding under the pressure. So I don't know, man. It's such a nuanced form of writing. It's unique to a lot of things I've read. I'll say it now because I kind of I'm like curious about other things other than we've talked a lot about the book of Astea. Is there anything that you wanted, any touch points that you wanted to get to that we didn't get to? Because I don't know, Alex, what do you think? I kind of want to get some realm of elderlings answers.
Oh.
Yes, no, Alex, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking. Oh man. Realm. I really can't, now that I think about it. When we get Isaiah's Isaiah's
reflections.
Oh,
did it just click?
Just a little.
Yeah.
But Isaiah's reflections, I thought it was very well done how we see. I thought you were able to take this aspect from Hobbes' writing, not just there actually, and throughout the entire duology. Hobbes, to me, is characterized, or specifically in something like Live Ship Traders, specifically in Live Ship Traders. I don't talk about Rainwild, but the way she is able to describe the ticking of thoughts in your head and then show us a rational jump from point A to point B. I thought what you were able to capture the way of describing somebody's thought process so that we can logically come from point A to point B without it sounding like exposition dump. very well.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Very concise.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love framing narratives. There's something about them. So, like Isaiah's chapters, especially the beginning of book 1, part 1 specifically, there's more detail on his story, where we kind of go back. To me, that was like my opportunity to write in that first person framing narrative style, where it's like it's a journal entry, but he was writing it as a memoir. So I'm really happy. Yeah.
Have you read Sun Eater?
I haven't read it yet. I know I'm going to love it. I will read it. It's one of those things where like I'm kind of like, here's the thing, right? Is I'm waiting for that moment when I need a really good book. Do you know what I mean? Right. I'm like, I need a book that I know I'm gonna love, and that's when I'll go to Sun Eater. That's
you're not gonna get that out of Empire of Silence though. So and I love Empire of Silence, but you're not gonna get it out of Empire of Silence. You're gonna get it out of Howling Dark.
So I gotta read book 1 first. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, read book 1, just get through it, and then when that moment comes up, you need to pick up book 2. That's all I'll say. Because book 1 is fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. It's I wouldn't classify it as a setup book. It's just a very early on journey. But if you love framing narrative and you want to pick up something that you're going to enjoy, Empire of Silence is that book. And then for the moment that you're talking about, Howling Dark is 100% that book.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta read it as part of homework as well, because I'm hoping my next book will be a framing narrative. So I want to read as many of them as I can.
Ooh, and get into it now, bro, because we need that new project in our hands ASAP.
Oh yeah, give it to us. Let me have it on my nightstand so that I can read it for however long I can read it.
Yeah. What's your Realm of the Elderlings is your absolute like top dog?
For me,
Zammar. Sorry,
Al. It's like number 2 for me. Like Abercrombie still tops it for me.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The thing with Abercrombie is that he doesn't miss. Like every single book is top notch. Like hit it out of the park, right? But then Realm of the Elderlings, there are ups and downs. There are like some books where it was okay. It was okay. There are some moments where you're like, it's okay. But then the peaks are just so high, right? Like live ship, like Ship of Destiny or Fool's Errand or Fool's Fate. Like, oh man, some of those, they're so good. So
yeah. Okay. Noted.
And I think number 3 for me, like very recently, would be Gentleman Bastards. Either that or A Song of Ice and Fire.
Which it's so funny how like similar all of the similar. I mean, they're all Joe Abercrombie-esque in a way, or Abercrombie would be considered them. You know what I mean? Like it's just that like crossover, and of course they're all very unique and very different. But that theme, like that, the touch points that they get to, that morally ambiguous concept. Yeah,
I think and like having a sense of style, I think, is huge for me. Like prose and style. I think Abercrombie is a very underrated prose writer. I think like he's actually amazing at what he does in terms of wordplay. Obviously, Hobb is incredible at it too, right? Like I like it when a book creates that atmosphere just using prose, because otherwise I don't feel very immersed in the story unless the prose can kind of suck me into it. And that's one of those things where in my own writing, like I feel like I'm very lacking in prose. I really need to step it up for my next books, but it's something which I care a lot about. For sure.
You don't give yourself more credit.
Prose?
Yeah, your prose is good, dude. Straight up.
Really
good. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, I understand the sentiment, but yeah, you don't have to be humble about that, dude. Your prose are good. Just period. And I think it does a service to independent publishing. Like you produced a product that's of high quality. There was something, and it was a way of speaking. What was it? I'm sure you picked up on it, Alex, as well. And it took me a second. I thought it was an editing error, and then I realized it's just kind of the way that the voice is. Do you know what I'm talking about, Alex? It's not as.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's something. It's like a similar. It's like a very simple phrase, or like a manner of speaking. this is going to fall again. I'm not going to dive into it because I don't think I highlighted it because it was like whatever, but it was one of those things where I was like, man, this seems like an editing, but then I was like, oh no, actually this is just like, it particularly fits really well here. This is the way it's said.
Yeah.
And that like those little details that you're able to throw into a book, and publish it on your own. It's impressive, man. It really is. It's something that inspires me, dude. It's really fucking sick.
I appreciate
Another
that.
thing I'd actually like to point out that I think is very interesting about how this is published. I just saw this cover in a bookstore. I'd think, oh, that's just probably trad published.
Yeah.
The only thing I guess that would stand out to me is the spine, how it says the Book of Astea rather than
Riven Earth.
Like it says the series name rather than the book name.
Yeah.
Big letters. That's the only thing that would stand out to me. And what comes to mind is you can't see that. I have Ryan Cahill's books up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember how in an interview he said at some point one of the best ways to market yourself as an indie published author is to trad publish. Let me be very clear. I'm not an authority on this at all.
Yeah.
But was that the goal you were going for?
You want a professional production of the book, right? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as indie authors, we really have to hold ourselves to a high standard. Like it's very important for the industry. We don't skimp on editing. We, go through it many rounds, minimize the typos, make the prose as clean as possible. Like all of that, I think is extremely important as an indie author. Like even though you could just throw it up on Amazon whenever, it's a bad look for the industry when you don't put in the time and effort into the books. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the covers, like I had like these. So like the book one scene, like I had that very specific scene from the moment it was written. I was like, you know what, this would be a good cover scene, I think.
Yeah, that was sick, dude. And the introduction of the Ash Fang, dude. That thing was so sick.
I love the flaming sword. I can never get enough of those.
I'm all about flaming swords, personally.
Oh yeah.
The book two scene, this was a lot harder. Like figuring out what scene is gonna go on there. It took a lot of debate, and there isn't like this moment is not exactly as like there. I don't think there was any single scene that was like this, but I think it captured the vibe of what we were going
and that's
for.
Raya,
yeah. She's looking like a complete badass. So
dude, so sick.
Blood on her swords.
Dude, yeah, so sick.
I think Andrew nailed it.
Man. Yeah, dude. I mean, he's a talented guy.
He is. But then the spines, it's like I specifically wanted the series title. So like I understand that might not be a trad pub thing, but for me it was like I want to make it clear that these two are the same book, right? Like it is the Book of Astea, like one book, and then volume 1, volume 2. Kind of felt intuitive to me to do it that way.
Made sense. It was more just something I thought was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like as I look at my shelf, I'm going, oh yeah, that book, and I kind of pause at Book of Astea and I go, Book of Astea, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Riven Earth, or is that Sundered Moon?
It's like Encyclopedia, right? Like Encyclopedia of the Americas, volume 1, and then on the next one is Encyclopedia of Americas, volume 2. Like it's the same. That's what was in my head. I don't know.
Oh, it's honestly, that's a great idea. I think that's a great thought process.
It's
unique? That's the thing I actually really, really love about indie publishing. That even if you're trying to do something that looks kind of like trad, you all do that. If you're indie published, I feel like most of the time there's something different, and I can feel it. Not that in the presentation, but more in the tale that I'm being told, and I love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think like one of the nicest things about indie is it's like the most direct connection you have to the author, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no. I mean, again, we go back to Sanderson. I don't mean to pick on Sanderson in specific, but I'm sure like a lot of people have read book 5 of Stormlight by now, right? Like a lot of people in his circle that are like helping edit it, that are helping prepare it and produce it and all that stuff. And like I don't know how much interference or anything goes on there. I don't think there's much in the way of interference, but it just feels like with indie, it's you read it, I wrote it, I put it up, and you just get to read it right away. Right? It's a very direct connection to the author, and the nice thing is like I get to do whatever I want. I get to put dinosaurs in my books, and like
sick.
There's certain chapters which maybe a smart editor would have said, Zammar, this is stupid, you got to take it out, but like I can ignore them and it's totally fine.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, totally. You can ignore me saying, tell people about the dinosaurs, dude. Like, no, I'm just not going to do that. Yeah, dude, I think, did you submit manuscripts and things like that for traditional publishing, or how'd that work? What was your process like in that way?
Yeah, no, I never even thought about going for trad pub, to be honest. And the main reason was I just I was too impatient. Like I just wanted to publish the books, and I knew that like if I was trying to do a trad pub, I would be dealing with a million submissions and nobody got time for that. I would be dealing with a million rejections and nobody got the feelings for that. And then I would be, like I'd be waiting like 1 to 2, 3 years before my book gets out in the world. And I was like, nah, I'm just gonna put it out there.
A perfect example of what you just said is I think the sequel to The Will of the Many, if you've read that, I think it's been finished for a solid 3 months now, and he started work on the third book. Yes, the third book, and the book's finished, but the publisher isn't publishing the book, or even I don't think we even have a release date. And I'm going,
oh wow,
why?
Yeah,
interesting.
They have their own reasons, man. I don't know. And the other thing is, I didn't want any interference. Like I was worried that I'd submit this and they would. Like that R scene with Mercedes, I don't know if that would have passed muster at most publishing houses for a debut author. Like,
oh yeah, probably not.
Maybe not, right? So So I just didn't want any interference. I was like, this is my story. I told it the way I want to, and I'm going to put it out there.
So, I'm very happy you didn't do that.
And it landed, dude. Everything landed, man. Everything was, and my stomach twisted when I felt like it was supposed to twist to make me realize that I'm a human being and not a psychopath. And then, I mean, it's just every little note, emotional note, it struck, man. Every single part. It was very good. There's a lot to be proud of here. And again, I really hope you start pecking away at one of those ideas in your head, man. I want to see what's next.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll try my best. Now I have you guys to motivate me. So
yeah, dude.
Oh yeah.
Dude, what's your next read? What are you reading right now?
Me, I am reading, so on the ebook I'm reading Sailing to Sorrentium. So that's GGK.
Ooh. Okay, yeah.
Really good. And I'm listening to the Bitter Twins, which is book 2 of the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. Oh, wow. And I very much recommend the Winnowing Flame. I think that you guys would like it a lot. It's really good.
Okay. What is it
I've
like?
I've heard a lot of good things about that trilogy.
Sorry, Chance, I missed that.
This is Winnowing Flame is like sell me. Throw me through the loop. What's it about?
So it's a trilogy, alternate world, and essentially this is a kind of apocalyptic. And it's
right there, sold.
Yeah. Okay, so it seems Chance and I are on the same page. Post-apocalypse, I'm in.
Yeah. You got it. Done.
Yeah, no, it is really, really good, and it's the world building is just it's so well done. It's like an absolute standout of world building. It's so, because people always say I like the world building in this, which is always kind of strange to me because I'm like, that's a verb, not a noun. You know what I mean? But I actually like the world building in the way that she's developed this world, and I like the world itself. It's very fascinating. That's what like most people talk about in that story, but it's also very well balanced. Like a really interesting plot with awesome characters, and I don't want to give too much away, but like I'd recommend it for sure.
Okay.
I think I've kept both of you here so long.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Mark, what do you think was, and if you don't want to answer this and keep it a little bit vaguer, I get it. What do you think was the core like thesis, I guess. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the core, I want to say theme, or actually even better, core question that you wanted to try and answer with the duology.
Core
or did
question.
You not have any?
Like I said, man, I was winging it the whole way. But I mean, like there are a few separate thematic elements to it, and I think like one of the ones which I really wanted, from the perspective of the plot, especially, that I wanted to think about was just environmentalism. And I think I tried to be like not too heavy-handed about it, but that's essentially what this whole world and story is about. It's about a society which built itself way too fast, and they did it by over exploiting their resources. And like they were just cutting down the forests like mad, which is how they built up so quickly. And yeah, and then there's like consequences to that, but they didn't realize those consequences because obviously, as most people over the vast majority of time have been completely ignorant about what we were doing to the environment. It's the same with these people. And I just, fantasy magicked in the consequences, obviously. But
yeah,
but essentially like that's like the major theme of the story is like what we do for the environment. And the thing is, I wanted to represent that in a way where it's not necessarily vile or evil. Like they're just trying to build houses, right? Like they're just trying to build homes for themselves. And it's a continual theme in book one. You'll see like they don't have enough builders. They can't build fast enough. Like all these villagers are without homes, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like the main governmental struggle, I guess. And there's social upheaval that comes with that. But then in book two, we see the consequences of like when you, like what Asula told Kaido, if you're going to change the world, you should understand it first, right? And like we generally didn't understand the world, and we were changing it drastically. So then, yeah, that's essentially that. If there was like one major thematic element that tied into the plot, that was it. And then at the end, it just tried to resolve it.
Wow. I mean, that to me sounds like a great way to close it off, so we can ask questions off live.
Oh yeah.
I would be remiss really quick, Alex, not to mention Esme, who motivated me to pick up Sundered Moon sooner, and also just simply to reach out and in the comments that we have and to chat with you. And it's so cool, man. It's really cool to have done this. And Alex, thank you so much for putting this all together.
Yeah.
Man, it's been awesome. I've been excited for it. Thank you for coming on, both of you.
I mean, like, thanks so much, guys, for giving these books a chance. Like, I'm so happy that they worked for you guys, and I'm so happy that I got to do this discussion with you. It's almost like a dream come true. Like I every time I read a book, I go on YouTube, I'm like, oh, can I find a book discussion on this so I can talk about it? But then to have one of my own books it's like a whole other feeling. So I really appreciate that.
Now I hope people are going to search it up and then hear you talking about your book and hear us talking about your book.
I can't promise you many views, man.
But I don't care about the views. I want somebody who enjoys the book to watch this.
Yeah. All I know is that from this conversation is that I can never run for political office. That's all I learned. That's about it. No, I'm kidding, dude. I mean, again, high praise, such high praise for your work.
You did, honestly, really a great job.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
All right, I'm gonna end the stream now.
All right, let's chat offline for a little bit.